What is happening, pretty people? A little chit chat with T-Row. Well, that's my standard opening. So, first of all, what I wanted to get into is thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day. This is going to be just a 10-minute webinar, and I'm just going to basically go through for the next 5 days. I'm going to go through basically, I have 11 F-bombs. And these F-bombs, and I'll get into them, are the F-bombs that basically have changed my life over the last 5 to 10 years. So I thought I'd write a book about it. And what started off as just a simple outline turned into a pretty structured, amazing book, if I do say so myself. We've had I think we're at well over 350 sales right now. I can't really remember. That's not the focus. All proceeds are going to go to the foundation that I started for my sister, silencethenoise.org. If you don't know my sister, and I'm going to get into that in family, she was manic depressive schizophrenic. And she passed away 10 years ago. And 3 years ago, I started a foundation in her name, and I biked across Route 66, and we'll get into that with family and fitness, to raise money for mental health awareness and to the trials and tribulations of not talking about mental health. And in turn, all of those proceeds go to 100% of them go to NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. So that's a little bit about why I wrote the book. And who I am and what I am. So on the next slide that I'm going to get into, it basically, what we're going to do is go through the format of what we're going to talk about all week. So today we're going to talk about faith and family. And then on Tuesday, we're going to talk about friends and fitness. And then on Wednesday, we're going to talk about finances and fuel. And when I say fuel, I don't mean just what you feed the body, but what you feed your mind. Thursday, we're going to go into fashion and fighting, basically self-defense. And then we're going to end on Friday with firearms and living in fear over focus. And then we're going to wrap everything up with forgiveness. So basically, who I was in Los Angeles and for the last 25 years of my life, I chronicled that in a book, my very first book called Swim, Bike, Run, Date, My Road to Ironman, Fueled by Cocaine, Booze, and Sex. And really, this book sums up my 25 years in Los Angeles, which was sex, drugs, rock and roll, and murder. So if you want to know what the murder is all about, pick up the first book, read it. Again, all those proceeds go to silencethenoise.org as well. But T-Row F-bombs. So basically, Swim, Bike, Run is kind of a 25-year chronicle of who I was in Los Angeles. And I'm just kind of touch on that. I don't want to get any blowback from my friends in Los Angeles, but it's kind of ironic that LA is a city of angels, and I felt like it was very dark and demonic. And that's not a reflection of the city and the people, it's a reflection of who I was at that period. I don't think a lot of people liked me, I think they tolerated me. And that kind of came to light when I was writing F-bombs, when I got into the roots of who I am now and who I was. So, like I said, I think people just tolerated me in Los Angeles. The little crux of that is, many of you know my dad was in the military, and I grew up in Hawaii. And Hawaii was very military centric. I think there were 8 to 10 military bases, 2 of each branch, so that puts you about 8 to 10. And when I moved to Texas, when I left Los Angeles, when you're sitting in shit long enough, it doesn't stink anymore. And then when I got to Texas has an unwritten rule, and that's faith, family, and country in that order, and it is strong, and it's the roots of that community and that state. And I really gravitated to that, so I thought it was really important. So that being said, I started tinkering around after Swim, Bike, Run, Date with just doing an outline of what I needed to do in my life to change, and I had to really dig into my faith. And then in realizing and embracing more of my faith, I kind of dug into my family. And then from my family, I looked at my friends and then my finances. And before I knew it, I think I had 10 or 11 Fs, and it was just a coincidence. And that's why I called it F-bombs. But I really want to get into the faith aspect of it, because that is the foundation, the resilience of who you are. I grew up Catholic, got married in the Catholic Church, got a divorce, and there was a lot of blowback from the Catholic Church. But that's a whole nother conversation. And growing up, I would go to Mass, and then we'd go to Sunday school, And then from Sunday school, I had to go to the officers club for etiquette class. And then when I came home from etiquette class, I had to basically do yard work and clean the garage and all that other stuff. And I would joke to my dad and say, isn't Sunday a day of rest? And he would say, yeah, for me, for you, get to work. And looking back now, Sundays were probably the most important foundation of my faith that brought me and gave me the structure of understanding discipline and how important it is to be of service above and beyond yourself. So when I moved to Texas, I got involved in a non-denominational church with strong Christian roots. And in 2023, I actually flew back to Texas and got baptized. And part of that walk in a new faith and foundation of Christ, I was able to get sober. I go into it and swim, bike, run, date. And that was, I used to train on cocaine, race on Adderall, and I would push myself to the point where I was constantly in pain, and it was Oxy, Percocet. And then after that, it was more partying with cocaine and alcohol. And I was just a walking time bomb. I get into that in both books. But I'm happy to say that since 2020, I haven't had any pills. Since 2021, I haven't touched cocaine. And since 2023, I haven't had a drink. Totally cold turkey. And I attribute a lot of that to my faith and just understanding that it's not about me. It's about serving and subscribing to a higher source. So that's about all I want to really get into with faith. Your faith or your roots. And I don't want to get into a debate about what is better. All I want to do is just really stress that you need to lean into a faith, whether that's Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Baptist, Mormon, Buddhist, whatever it is, lean into it and embrace a faith that can kind of bring you to a higher enlightening place. And the bottom line is just don't be a dick and don't get into strong arguments of what faith you think is better, because that's currently what we're seeing right now in current events. It's playing out right now. And what I want to leave you with lastly, if you don't think we're in a spiritual warfare, you are sadly mistaken. Find your faith, lean into it. I want to spend 30 seconds talking about agnostic and atheism. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's a cop-out. Lastly, I want to talk to you about family. Family to me is super important. Your family they didn't happen to you, they happened for you. I talked to you a little bit about Tanya. Tanya was manic-depressive schizophrenic. My mom was awesome, but she was an enabler. My dad was a high-functioning alcoholic. I get into all this in the book. And my brother's awesome, but their formative years in the late teens, early 20s, battled drugs and alcohol. And my family was just built on chaos, so that's what I created. And in turn, I kind of hid behind that by saying, I grew up in chaos, so that's what I have to live in is chaos. And I made my life chaos. And I touched on it earlier, anybody that knew me in Los Angeles, again, I was saying that I don't think people really liked me. They tolerated me. And I don't blame you guys because I didn't like myself. That's for sure. I was living a lie. And I get into a lot of that in swim, bike, run, date. But the outpour of T-Row F-bombs has been absolutely phenomenal. A lot of you are buying the book knowing where the donations go. You guys send me incredible texts saying that we're supporting the book, we're supporting Silence the Noise. There are just handfuls of you that have not only purchased the book, but continue to make donations to Silence the Noise. And I think that's really fantastic. I can't thank you enough for that. If I didn't say it earlier, your family doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So you have a choice that you could lean into it and do the work to become better. And I'm not saying that I'm better than you guys right now. What I'm saying is I'm a better version of me based on who I was in Los Angeles. So basically, in closing for this final 10 minutes of today on Monday, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time to support the book, to support me, support Silence the Noise. Right there on the screen is a QR code that's going to take you to Amazon to purchase the book. And if you're not interested in purchasing the book, that's fine. I get $0 from this. All proceeds go to silencethenoise.org. And so if you want to purchase the book, know that all proceeds are going to that. But if you just want to simply donate to silencethenoise.org, that's awesome too, because in return, and again, all the proceeds go to NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. I think we can all say we know somebody who's struggling with anxiety, depression, and just overall mental health. All right, team, you guys absolutely rock. That is your Monday message, F-bombs, T-Row F-bombs, where we talked about faith and family. Tomorrow, we're going to get into friends and finances. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you tomorrow.